This is TWiT.
This was really interesting to me. So anyone who knows me knows I'm obsessed with TikTok, and not just consuming TikTok content, but also creating TikTok content. And most of my stuff is just kind of silly stuff here and there. But one of the things that I see very prominently throughout TikTok is people who use beauty filters that are like making it look like they're wearing makeup when they didn't have to do any makeup at all. And not only that, but it also might make your eyes look a little bigger, your lips look more plump, or whatever it may be. I stay away from these filters because I know there's no need to get used to something like that isn't real, right? And so what TikTok is now doing is they are actually blocking anyone under 18 from being able to use these beauty filters. So things like Bold Glamour, which is one of the really popular ones, again, can kind of smooth over your skin, make it look like you're wearing a full face of makeup. And they're very convincing. I mean, you see videos of people rubbing their faces and it's not glitching, which is terrifying and impressive all at once. But I think this is a really interesting move because TikTok is always under fire for a range of reasons, right? And one of the things that we have to think about when we talk about any social media, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or whatever it may be, is, content that isn't necessarily real. It looks real, it's not real, and that includes beauty standards. And TikTok is a little bit more raw, I think, than Instagram. A lot of things are a lot more unfiltered. I think it was the first platform where I felt like I saw people just in their pajamas with their hair undone and just chatting away, and a video would go viral and no one would bat an eye, right? But there's still a lot out there on TikTok that is aspirational or that isn't necessarily real. And I think these filters play a role in that. That's something that can affect anybody, but especially children. If you get used to what your face looks like with a filter on, and then suddenly you take a picture and you don't have that filter, it can mess with you. It can make you think, oh, but I don't look as good as I do when I have this filter on, and you get really, really attached to it. So that, again, that can happen with any age, but I think especially kids under 18 are more susceptible to that. So I think it's really interesting that TikTok will now ban those filters for anyone under the age of 18. And it comes at an interesting time, right? So, across not just the European Union and the UK, but also in the US, there's more crackdown on social media apps, especially TikTok. I mean, in the US, we're maybe waiting for a TikTok ban if they don't sell. Maybe not. We'll see what happens in January. But they're always facing scrutiny for, the impact on children. So this seems like something where we put aside the concerns about privacy and security, which those conversations will always be happening. But also, I'd like to remind you that a lot of apps violate your privacy and security, and not just TikTok. But this is something that's much more immediate. And for them to say, we're going to do this now, we're going to get rid of this now, and it has a very direct impact on users, I think that's a very good step. Even if they're doing it for PR, I don't really care. I think it's good to implement something like this. And the other piece of it is, okay, if you're banning this for kids under 18, how do you ensure that those kids aren't lying about their ages? TikTok has said they're going to use machine learning very soon to have more rigorous standards for for making sure people don't slip through those age barriers and lie about their age. We'll see how effective that is. But I think this is hopefully something positive. How do you feel about this, Mikah?
Yeah, and this is the thing about what you're talking about here, is that this is the most convincing and sort of reasonable step that I've heard when it comes to where we stand on the effect of social media on young people. There's a lot of stuff out there, and there's a lot of panic out there, and there's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's some disinformation out there, and there is a non-zero amount. There are a non-zero amount of people who are kind of trying to have a reasonable approach to those concerns and say, well, we did this with books when those first hit the scene. We did this with rock and roll music when it first hit the scene. We did this with video games. We did this. There's this panic of, oh, it's all affecting our kids, yada, yada, yada. And so sometimes these efforts can get lumped into that overall fear-mongering that is taking place. Yeah. This seems like again, one of the most reasonable changes to make because of what you said about how someone could be seeing this in the platform, getting used to their face appearing a certain way,
Right.
and then the dysmorphia, right, of looking at themselves without the filter
Mhm.
and saying, now I am not that ideal version of myself. It's not the person that I want to be. That can be really damaging to one's personal identity.
Yeah.
When you were talking about that, it did make me think about something else that social media, and particularly audio and video based social media, is changing. And this is something that I know a lot of people experience based on me talking to a lot of people about it, which is that a lot of people up to this point spend many years of their lives not hearing themselves except as they're speaking.
Hmm.
And the first time they hear themselves from an external source, it is really jarring. And many times people will have a viscerally negative reaction, not because their voice sounds bad or anything like that, but because it sounds different from what they're expecting.
Yeah.
And this generation that's growing up, it's interesting that they're probably many of them are not going to have that issue
Right.
because they will be recording themselves, or their parents will be recording them and playing, oh, look what you when you were this age, and so on and so forth, and here you are talking about. And that is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
But when I think about the viscerally negative reaction that I hear from so many people who experience that, I can only imagine what that must feel like if their whole life they're looking at things through this filtered lens, and then they come to they have to to come to understand that what they really look like versus what this beauty standard looks like are two different things.
Right.
That could be, I could imagine that being very, very damaging. So this is overall a good thing, I feel. And here's the thing, even if the platform doesn't go as far as what TikTok is doing with, because there's that complaint like, okay, they can do this, but people are just going to lie about their age.
Mhm.
That has always been a factor. That has always been something that's going on. I think that making this change, even if they didn't go further in saying, here's how we're going to detect, I still think that's a positive thing to throw this out or say, well, this isn't worth it because people are going to lie about their age. No, the change is still taking place.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it is the responsibility of the guardians of these youths to, be mindful of what they are doing and consuming and et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I think this is a positive thing all around, which is an odd thing. I'm feeling a sort of an odd feeling about it because so much of this is stuff where I'm going, let's slow down and chill out. We don't really understand the impact, and there's a lot more research that needs to be done, and the fear mongering is just causing damage overall, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Here I'm going, rah, rah, rah. This really does feel like a smart change. So good on TikTok in this case, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think it's because we see that direct impact immediately because we've always known that, people comparing themselves to either somebody in a magazine or on Instagram is unhealthy. But imagine comparing yourself to yourself, but it's not really you, right? And that's even
Yeah.
more damaging because it's like, well, I see that I can be this thing, but it's not real and I can't really, access it. So yeah, I think this will hopefully, be an immediate change that will take a while to sink in for people, but once it does, I think hopefully a good move. But yeah, we've seen a series of updates from TikTok, Instagram, like Instagram, for example, rolling out teen accounts not too long ago, which makes anyone's account under 18 private by default and limits things like notifications at certain hours and more parental controls. But those things seem like things that will take a bit more time for people to accept, but also to see, what the impact might be. But I think something like this that affects your body image and how you see yourself, hopefully more immediate positive impact because it's good to stay away from those filters. And if you don't even have the option, that's even better.
Yeah, I agree. I also think of some of the beauty filter pranks that you'll see fly by. One that I've seen recently where someone will be pretending to do a friend or a significant other's eyebrows.
Yeah.
And then they put on the filter that really thins out their eyebrows and show it to them. And they're very convincing. So the person sees this and is going, oh my goodness, what have you done? And again, that is another example of just how visceral and powerful an impact change to our appearance can have on our psyche. That it's enough that people are making these recordings of it because it is something where you immediately go, and it can be shocking. So yeah, this is so easy to see and show. Here is an impact that anybody can witness.
Yeah.
Let's do something about it, I think is a positive thing. So I would like to see maybe some movement on Snapchat's front.
Yes.
Other one that's common for a lot of these filters.
Yeah.
That might be a good place to go next.
That's a good point. I mean, that's kind of where it all began. And I will note, don't worry, the bunny ears, all that's staying because that's not normal. So you still be able to use bunny ear filters if that's what you're into. But just the stuff that makes you look a little too polished. So, but yeah.